Hi, my name's Arnon Menon from King's College, and I direct this UK in a Changing Europe project. And what I'm going to do for the next 10 minutes is sort of lay some groundwork about what the EU is, what it does, what this referendum's about, and the sort of things we need to be thinking about, and why it matters to you and you should take it seriously. So, why are we having this referendum? Well, without being too cynical, we're having this referendum for narrow political reasons, and those narrow political reasons can be found in the Conservative Party, broadly speaking. Back in 2010, 2011, when David Cameron was arguing against the need for a referendum, he was arguing against sections of his own party who, for a variety of reasons, said it's time to give the British people a choice about membership. The pressures on him grew to the point where by 2013 he was making his famous Bloomberg speech where he said, we will have a referendum by the end of 2017. So essentially this referendum happened because of a need for party management. But that shouldn't make you think the referendum doesn't matter, because now it's being called, it is nothing short of the future of this country that is at stake. So let's think about that, how this European integration project worked. Well, straight after the Second World War, the original six got together and started discussions. In the early 1950s, they created something called the European Coal and Steel Community. Fast forward to 1958, and the institutions we recognise from now are brought into being with the European Economic Community. Treaty of Rome, 1958, creates the precursor to the European Union. Over time, since the Second World War, member states have imposed their own logics on it. Subsequently, other member states overlaid their own reasons. The countries of the South, Spain, Portugal, and the Greeks, were coming out of periods of dictatorship when they joined, and they saw Europe and the European community as a way of entrenching democracy. And more recently still, you have the countries of the East, who'd spent far too long in the Warsaw Pact, wanted to separate themselves from Russia, and saw membership of the European Union as a way of underlining that separation. Everyone has a slightly different reason, in other words, and it's worth saying now, we British are quite different in that respect, because one of the things that sets us apart from the other member states is we don't have a political narrative about membership. Whilst all the other member states do, whether it's peace, whether it's democracy, whether it's anti-Russia, we joined the European community in 1973 because they were doing better than us economically and we wanted a piece of that pie. We've never had an ulterior political motive, and that's one of the reasons why we talk about Europe differently to our neighbours. When they talk about political union, we roll our eyes in a British way and say, we don't get it, what are you talking about? And actually, it's one of the themes of this referendum. We look at Europe in a transactionalist way. We weigh up the costs, we weigh up the benefits, we do a calculation. And other member states look at us and say, but what about Europe in your hearts? And we look at them blankly and say, well, maybe, but not really for us. The history of the European community is a long and tortured one, and I'm not going to bore you with it now, but the main dates we should bear in mind for us are in 1960, Britain applied to join the European community twice and was turned down twice by French President de Gaulle. After he left office, we tried again and we ended up joining in 1973. Very soon thereafter, in 1975, we decided that the terms on which we joined didn't please us, and they weren't great, it has to be said, and so we held a referendum in which we voted by almost 2/3 to 1/3 to stay in. The situation remained frozen like this, with a lot of discontent in Britain, so Margaret Thatcher came into power demanding our money back, getting the famous budget rebate. And at the end of the 1980s, when for the first and probably only time, both major political parties found themselves united in support of membership. And that was a period where support of membership in the opinion polls soared into the 60%. But that was only for a few years. By the 1990s, in the time of Maastricht, the Tory rebels were emerging, and the Tory party became a party profoundly divided on the issue of Europe, which is one of the factors shaping our debate today. Tory Eurosceptics harried and hassled John Major during his premiership, and since that time, some of those people have pressed ceaselessly to try and get us out of a European Union which they never liked from the moment it was signed in the Maastricht Treaty. Fast forward again to now, and David Cameron, with the same divided Tory party, albeit with different figures in it now, though some of the same, faces that division, and this is the moment of truth when we vote again on our membership. So when you come to think about this referendum, what are the kinds of issues you should be thinking about? Well, broadly speaking, there are 5 or 6 big themes that need to be thought about, I think, in the context of what British membership of the European Union means. Firstly, there's that wonderful word that no one understands, which is sovereignty. What does it mean for Britain as a country to be a member of the European Union? Does it mean we lose control? Does it mean we should reassert control by leaving? A lot of big themes there that are confused lawyers, economists and political scientists for decades. Then there's economics, and basically the question here is, has membership been good or bad for the British economy? But you can divide that up and say, even if you buy the argument that membership has been good for the British economy, has it benefited some people more than others? Does the city do better than manufacturing firms, for instance? So the economics are complicated, but they're absolutely crucial. Then, of course, there's the totemic issue of migration. Does membership of the European Union mean we've lost control of our borders? Does it mean we can't say who can come in and who can't come in? Does it mean that we're paying what in popular parlance we refer to as hard-earned taxpayers' money to give benefits to migrants who've come here just to get those benefits? Those are all the issues that are tied up with the debate over migration. Then, of course, many on the left talk about this a lot, and the Labour Party's in-campaign is talking about this a lot. There's the whole social dimension of European integration. Does Europe provide protections that we would otherwise lack? Does it protect workers? Does it guarantee holidays? Does it protect the rights of women? Is there a role, and how significant is the role of Europe when it comes to social policy? And there are sort of big macro political issues at stake here. One is the future of the United Kingdom itself. That is to say, does our membership impact on the nature of Britain as a state? What impact would leaving have on the United Kingdom? Would Scotland leave in the event that we voted to leave the European Union? Has the European Union differentially impacted on Wales, on Northern Ireland, on the south of England, or on Scotland? There's a territorial dimension to the question of membership. And the other big political issue, and you'll hear a lot about this, I suspect, from the Prime Minister in June, is how much does our security depend on our membership of the European Union? Would having more control of our borders be a result of us leaving? Does that make us safer? Do we need to collaborate with our European allies? And does collaboration in the European Union help us to fight terrorism? What does it mean for the ability of our government to protect its people that we are a member of the European Union? That's the final big political issue, I think, that's at stake in this referendum. So, all in all, there's lots to think about. And the fact is, as I said earlier, this is a referendum that really matters. A decision that's taken on the 23rd of June is going to shape the future of this country. So the most important thing about it, I think, for everyone concerned, is that we try and educate ourselves about the issues, because the worst of all worlds would be for us to vote a certain way by mistake or out of ignorance or on the back of insufficient knowledge. But when you come to think about this and talk about it amongst yourselves, here are the sorts of things you should think about. Has membership been good for the British economy? And has it been good for all the economy? And has its distributional consequences been the kind you like? Has membership made us safer? Has membership implied an unacceptable loss of sovereignty, a loss of control by a sovereign state which we shouldn't tolerate in a country like Britain? Has it meant that we can get people coming into our country we don't want? Or has actually freedom of movement helped us, helped our society, helped our economy? And finally, what does membership mean for the United Kingdom? Has it made us stronger together? Has it made us a less cohesive society? And will it eventually be something, if we decide to leave, that breaks the United Kingdom apart?